What is up, everybody? It's Jamal from the Sales Tribe, and welcome to the Sales Tribe YouTube channel. The backstory on this channel is that I run a LinkedIn group called the Sales Tribe, which is a LinkedIn group for enterprise sellers. And if you're interested in that, I'm going to put a link down below if you haven't been a part of it yet. If you're an enterprise seller, I really welcome you into this group. It's a group with a lot of engagement and no spam. And it's all about helping each other get to the next level in terms of enterprise sales. But onto this video and the channel. So the reason I started the channel is because I do a lot of content in the LinkedIn group, but all the videos are limited to 10 minutes. And I'm starting to do longer stuff like this interview, which is basically an hour of amazing gold content, and I need a place to put it, so I'm starting the channel. So with that, the video that you're about to see is with Stu Heinecke. He is the author of How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, and his new book is called Get the Meeting, which is a companion to the first book. And they're both about the amazing concept of contact marketing, which is basically a strategy that we can use to get to very high-placed individuals, executives, hard-to-reach stakeholders within our accounts through basically mail campaigns where we send objects or tools or content through the mail that show our customers and our prospects how much value we have to offer and that we think completely differently, and we set ourselves apart from all kinds of other more typical cold reach by phone and by email, etc. So I hope you enjoy the full interview, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.
You've really introduced the kind of the modern. I know you say that there's not really an old school and a new school, but whatever works. But this modern take on really creative marketing, that you generally term contact marketing, or at least in the first book.
Yeah.
So could you just break it down for a novice who hasn't read the books, the premise, and give us a long version of your elevator pitch?
It's a long way up and down. Well, that's the short version is, if you think about all of the great things, all of the amazing things that have happened in your life, everything, every bit of progress that's happened in your life has happened because you've connected with someone. And does that make sense? I think that makes a lot of sense. And then also, really, the headline actually the literal headline when I actually advertise the books is "One meeting can change everything," and that really does sort of explain the philosophy and the scale of all this. Well, it doesn't explain the scale, actually, part of the scale, because you really don't have to focus on a lot of people, and this is not about mass marketing. Mass marketing has its place, but that's not what this is. Especially, it's not appropriate when you're trying to reach and connect with and relate to the C-suite. That's not mass marketing at all. So it's a very individual focus on the small handful, let's say relative handful of people who can change the scale of your career or your business or really your life ultimately. And these meetings, although we always talk about sales meetings because salespeople are always looking to get meetings, but there are other meetings. There are meetings that lead to life partnerships or new jobs or new strategic partnerships, new mentorships, whatever those are, you still have to make connections. And if you're going to if the connections are worthwhile, you're going to have to make connections with someone who is very important, highly placed, usually well insulated or guarded, we might say. And even if they weren't guarded by an executive assistant, they guard their own time because it's so valuable. And I think people outside of the C-suite might not understand quite how valuable that is. But, we hear about the compensation that CEOs get, actually usually as a complaint. But if you then divide that by the number of minutes they have to spend talking to people, those minutes are worth a lot of money to that company. And so they're very careful about how they spend them. And they don't want to be distracted from the things that they're pursuing or interested in. They're open to new things, but they don't want to be distracted because someone wants to sell window cleaning services. That's not a CEO play. So as you rightly put it, you've got to be. If you want to reach the C-suite or the CEO, you have to have something of strategic importance, particularly to the future of the company. And I think we're at the top floor now.
Right. I would say so. So So for the layperson who's never heard of contact marketing, can you give us some examples that would show us the difference between what we know as typical marketing or some kind of approach or prospecting for us? In my world, it's enterprise sales, right? So I'm selling something that individuals don't buy. It's something that's bought. It's technology or software, typically, that's purchased for the entire organization. So in my world, it's prospecting, but there's also the marketing element more and more. Yeah. So what is the kind of the definition of contact marketing, and what are a couple of examples that can help us understand it kind of quickly?
So contact marketing is they're micro-focused campaigns. So I should say it's a fusion of marketing and selling in which micro-focused campaigns are used to create contact with top-level accounts and prospects. So these are the kinds of people who we were just talking about, the C-level people at the companies that have the greatest chance of expanding your scale. So you had asked about examples, and man, there are so many. I could start out by how I started with contact marketing. That's probably a good place to start. So very, very early on when I started my career, I wanted to create direct mail campaigns for magazine publishers, and at the time, they were the biggest, most sophisticated users of direct marketing. They were it. I mean, they had great budgets for creative fees and so on. That was the place I wanted to go. And so I started with 2 test campaigns that I created for Rolling Stone and Bon Appetit magazines, and both of those beat the control. And so we're speaking in a marketing sense, and really in statistics, there's always a control group that you test against. That's the constant. That's how you know whether just what the results mean from the test. So in direct marketing, the control actually is the most effective thing they'd ever put in the mail. So if you create a test campaign and it ties the control, you just tied the record for response, like the all-time record. That's amazing. If you beat the control, that should be unusual. But my first time out, I beat the control both times. I mean, for both of the magazines. So that's like a rookie walking on the field and hitting 2 grand slam home runs. Okay, that's it. That's my chance. I'm going to bring this out to the rest of the publishing industry. And so I put together a little campaign. I didn't know what to call it. I called it a contact campaign because I just had to call it something. And my contact campaign consisted of an 8x10 print of a cartoon, and the cartoons are all in these marketing campaigns are always personalized. So I've written the gag so that I can insert a first and last name into the caption, in other words. But it's a little more. It's also created with some assumptions in mind. I mean, like if it's going to a business audience, I guess we can assume that anybody who receives it will probably feel pretty flattered by a cartoon that has a couple of characters talking about how hard it is to compete with them, or just what a big success they're sort of commemorating their success. So that's what I did with the little 8x10 cartoon with a personalized caption, and then a note that went with it that said, "Dear so-and-so, this is the device I just used to beat the control for Rolling Stone and Bon Appetit. And I think we should put this to the test for your titles as well. Let's talk." So I needed to reach about just to introduce it throughout the throughout the publishing industry. I need to reach about just 24 people. That was it. These were VPs and directors of circulation or consumer marketing at Time Inc. and Condé Nast and the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, et cetera. So, but it didn't take much for this relative handful of people to cover an entire industry. So, send it out to those people, and I ended up getting 100% response. That's crazy because in the industry I was just starting out in, all of the pundits were saying, "Hey, they were saying 2 things. One, humor doesn't work. Don't use it in campaigns." And the other was that 100% response rates are absolutely impossible. And there I was, introducing myself into this direct marketing world with a contact campaign. So a different kind of campaign, but a contact campaign that did generate 100% response. I got through to all of them. Not only that, all of them became clients. So it's 100% conversion. And it all stemmed from a campaign that I spent, I don't know, $100 on it. And it was worth millions of dollars to me. And it launched my business. So that's pretty emblematic of what contact marketing is about. I targeted a very small audience, and it had a huge impact on, well, it had a huge impact on my business. I mean, it started my business, so it's a huge impact on it. It changed my scale. It changed a lot of things, changed my life. And it all came from, just reaching out to those 24 people. So I think that's the essence of contact marketing. You asked about stories, and there are lots of stories. My 2 books are filled with stories about it. So I don't think you want to repeat all of them now, but there are lots of stories of people who have used audacious, clever, really interesting ways of reaching out to people that are of great importance to them, and breaking through in a way. Here's the crux of it. They're breaking through in a way that has the recipient saying, wow, who is this? I love the way they think. And especially that part, I love the way they think, because we were talking about breaking through to the C-suite. Everybody wants to break through to the C-suite. So they're bombarded all the time. And it's very hard to, I guess you could say the C-suite is a crowded channel in a way. So if you're reaching out and you're one of many reaching out, then you have to differentiate yourself, or I would say humanize yourself. You have to be the one person, or let's say among the relative few, who they say, wow, that was fascinating. Wow. You know what? Love the way you think. We've got it. Let's talk. Because I think they expect that you have the insight and the I don't know, just the presence of mind to understand what it is that they're trying to do. Yeah,
that's great. And I've read both of your books, and I just remember one of the stories, and you could pick one of, as you said, tens or maybe even hundreds. But one of the stories that I remember was somebody who I don't remember his name, but maybe it was Dom. Somebody, was he the one with with the glove?
Yeah, Dom Steinman.
Yeah, could you tell that one? Because it was a story of an SDR, right, a sales development rep on the phone, who actually broke through to a very senior person. I don't know if you can share that one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So the way that story came to me also is interesting, because the first book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, I have it right here. Maybe I should hold it up.
Yeah.
But this book, How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. So that came out, and as soon as it came out, I started hearing from people with other interesting stories. That's what led to the second book, or partly what led to it. But people were saying, I used or read your book and used what was in it, and it changed everything. So here was a story from Dom Steinman. He said, I just want to tell you what happened to me, because it's really amazing. A year ago, he said, I was just finishing college, and I was recruited as an SDR for this late stage startup in Silicon Valley. And I was brought into a group of SDRs, and our key performance indicator, or KPI, was we had to do 100 calls a day. I guess that's probably not very unusual, but they were required to make 100 phone calls a day. And he said, it was just exhausting, and I don't know if it's what you would expect it to be. It would just be exhausting and discouraging, because most people just don't want to pick up the phone and engage in a conversation with a random person. And so, they do. I mean, it's not like it doesn't happen or doesn't work, but it's a numbers game, and it wears on you. And so one night, Don was having a dinner with a friend, and he was just lamenting all this. It's, oh gosh, I don't feel like I'm not getting anywhere. 100 phone calls, I might get one conversation a day, and it's not leading anywhere. I haven't had any sales yet. So the friend said, well, why don't you read this book? He recommended my book. Why don't you read this book? And because it suggests a completely different approach, which is to compile a short list and come up with something really incredible as a way to reach them. And so Dom read the book, and the thing that really stood out to him was using what I called deep personalization in my new book. And I better hold that one up too. And Get the Meeting. That's this guy. So in deep personalization, you use a profile scrape. In other words, just deeper research, or deep research on each person to find out, well, what's actually going on with them, and what are they interested in? Who are they? Who are they as people? And therefore you craft an very individualized or personalized campaign approach to each of them. So he really loved that approach, and he decided, okay, I'm going to look at the list of people that nobody or accounts that nobody's been able to penetrate, and I'm going to start doing some research, do some profile scrapes, and see what I can find out. So the first one was one of those people nobody could reach him, and he discovered that the fellow was really interested in cooking, technology, and family. So, pardon me, he took 2 out of the 3. Pardon me, sorry about that. He took 2 out of 3. He had a barbecue apron embroidered with a Stanley C. Clarke quote: "If technology sufficiently advanced, will appear as magic." Beautiful. Put that on the apron. Sent it to the guy. And he hears back right away. And the guy says, "Man, I love this. Wow, I love that. That was great. Good job." And the conversation ensued, and then deal ensued. It was a 6-figure deal. So, okay, that's pretty cool. And he kept doing it. But then his colleagues started to notice what he was doing. And they were saying, well, actually, they noticed his results. How are you getting through to these people and getting deals suddenly? Because none of us are. And he said, well, and would you teach us? So he said, yeah, sure. So first guy that he's teaching says, well, okay, here's another one of those accounts. Nobody's been able to reach this person. So how do we do it? What do we do? And he said, okay, let's do a deep dive into his profiles and background information and quotes in the press and so on. Let's find out what he's interested in. And what they discovered is that the guy was really interested in falconry. And so they went to a site, a falconry site, talked to the owner and said, well, what can we get this prospect who is really interested in falconry? We'd like to get something really nice. And he said, okay, let me show you this glove. So showed him this glove. Now, falconers wear, there's this big ornate glove. That's what they hold the birds in. Very thick leather, but it's ornate. This was the sport of kings after all. So this glove, the gloves are works of art. And so while they ordered the glove, they also downloaded the picture, sent an email out to the prospects and said, hey, I'm sending you this glove. I know you're really interested in falconry, but I also want to have I don't really know the text of the email, but it was along the lines of, but I'd also like to meet with you. Can we spend a few minutes together? Well, again, this is someone no one was able to get any response from. He wrote back right away and said, gee, that's really cool. Thank you, but I'm not really a prospect for what you do, but I really appreciate it. Well, then the glove arrives, and I'm going to pardon me. Then the glove arrives, and the guy calls back right away. And he says, "Oh my God, I got the glove. This is so cool. Thank you so much. This is great. Listen, remember I said I wasn't a prospect? Well, I'm not, but I know of 3 CIOs who are looking for what you're doing or for what you do right now. So I'm going to make some referrals, and I hope you get a deal." Well, more deals ensued. So this started to spread throughout the SDR department now, and the management started to notice what was going on. They're saying, "What is this? What happened? What made this difference?" And everybody pointed to Dom and explained what Dom was having them do. And wow, we would really like that Dom was then promoted to sales manager, while also the company was acquired by Cisco for $4.7 billion. So in the span of a year, and thanks to his use of contact marketing, Dom went from a new college graduate to sales manager of a multinational $4.7 billion company. This is pretty amazing. That's pretty rapid growth.
That is an amazing story. And it really, what I love about the story is that it's not just a story about an SDR, but it's a story about how somebody kind of low on the totem pole can reach somebody who's extremely high through creative thinking. And it's very targeted. It's very narrow. And it's deep personalization, as you talk about. It's just amazing. It feels very empowering. Right. So to think that as a lowly sales rep, we actually can break through when we learn how to differentiate, when we learn how to personalize, and when we learn how to use the creative thinking that we have in a way that they're going to recognize, to get to that point where they look at this object or this device and they say, I really love how you think. And I'm curious enough and I appreciate enough about that creativity that I'm willing to connect with you.
Yeah. Could I give you another example though? Because we got to contrast deep versus wide personalization. So that was a great example of deep personalization, profile scrapes, understanding exactly what's going on with each person, and crafting a message and a device, a contact device for each one, and they're all going to be different. But the other form of personalization is wide personalization. That's what I used in my direct mail campaigns, for example, and certainly what I still use in my cartoon campaigns. So we start out with a well chosen or well crafted cartoon, for example, that make some assumptions again, like, we know that the person is, if I'm reaching out to a CEO, they're very successful in business. So if the cartoon is about their success, they're going to love it. All we really need is their first and last name. We don't need to know the name of their dog. We don't need to know where they went to college. We don't need to know really much else other than we know that they're successful. We know that they're a CEO. We know they're within the target audience, and we know how to spell their name correctly, and we get it right and put it in the caption. Well, here's what happens with those. And I've got an example. I don't know if it'll even fit on the camera, but here's one of those cartoon pieces. I'm back here somewhere, but here's one, so this one is a multi-panel cartoon, and I probably ought to read it. There are a bunch of cowboys sitting around the campfire, and a few of them are saying, "I ever tell you," or one of them saying, "I ever tell you fellas the story of Billy the Kid?" Yep, sure did. Yeah. And then the next one is, well, this one's going to Greg Wallach. So how about Wild Greg Wallach? And I love the opportunity to call anyone wild, whoever they are.
Yeah, right.
And so Greg is the president of Best Roofing. So you mean the president and CEO of Best Roofing? And then in the final panel, yep, sure did. You can say that again, at least 100 times before. So anyway, yeah, you've told us the story. Well, I send that thing out, and people see, these CEOs love that thing. And it ends up being, it's too big obviously it's too big to file away. They don't throw it away. It's too valuable. So it ends up staying in their office the rest of their careers, I think. Actually, it stays up there. And, they'll put it on their credenza or something. Some might get it framed. That's not what I want happening, because, here's the front of the piece, but here's the back of it. And there's a whole message from sender to recipient. This one's kind of an unusual one because it's usually a big rectangular one. But there's a message from the sender to the recipient explaining, who they are, why they want to meet, and what the next steps are. So we don't want that framed and obscured, but usually that's not what happens. They're just set up on a credenza somewhere. And they stay there, well, at least for years, if not the rest of their careers. And the thing that's really fun about this one is, because I think some people come to the conclusion that, well, the only valid form of personalization now is deep personalization. And they want to apply deep personalization to, for example, big boards, which makes no sense. They'll start asking things like, would you come up with a cartoon for each of them? No, I wouldn't do that, because we want to get standardized test results. We want to know what works and what doesn't. We don't want to just dazzle them with a different cartoon each time. So, but what's fun about this is that when we're sending these things, let's say when one of my clients' reps is because that's a system that we use for contact. So when they're sending one of these things out, if they're sending it to someone who has an assistant, if they're sending it to that high level, and we're talking about C-suite people on our conversation here, well, they're usually going to have assistants, and many salespeople seem to dread assistants. And they see them as gatekeepers. And I guess that's one thing that they do, but that's not all of what they do. And so, they'd like to circumvent the assistant. That's not the right way to do this. That's certainly not the most effective. As you're smiling, and I know, these assistants are incredible. I'm a big fan of assistants, actually. They're some of the sharpest people in the companies, yeah. Really. So it starts out with a call to the assistant, and the rep will say something along the lines of, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, and I'm calling because I'm sending a print of a cartoon by one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists, and it's about your boss." what? They're so shocked. Really? So, and let's not forget that part of an assistant's job is to block the people who shouldn't be taking up their executive's time from getting through. But it's also to let people through that they're all. I actually, you could think of them as talent scouts. So they're they're not going to let the crappy talent or the no talent people through, but they will let the high talent people through. And so your challenge really is to be one of those high or just compelling people immediately with the first words out of your mouth. So saying I'm sending a print of a cartoon by one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists and it's about your boss kind of does that. So it continues. Now, the thing is, I want it to be a surprise to your boss, but not to you. Would you mind if I send you an email with the details and my contact information? Usually the response is no, not at all. Please, here's my email address and here's how you spell my name. And so then an email goes out. Thank you so much for your help. And here again, I'm sending a print of a cartoon by one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists. It's about your boss. As soon as I have FedEx tracking information, I'll get back to you with that. The next thing that happens is a card goes out, and the card has a personalized cartoon, a different one, but a card with a handwritten note thanking them for their help over the phone. It might even include a coffee card. Some of the gags that we use are about them buying coffee, but it's a funny thing about getting coffee. So they include a coffee card, like a Starbucks card or something, as a thank you gift. But really, the cartoon card alone is a thank you gift, and those cartoons. It's about the recipient, it's about the assistant. So those will stay on their desk or they'll go up on their bulletin boards. They don't throw those away either. And then finally, when the FedEx tracking information is available, another call happens. And so now they've had 4 touches. The executive assistant has had 4 touches: the initial call, the email afterward, the card afterward, and then finally the email with the tracking information. By the time this big board arrives, they're usually quarterbacking the campaign from the inside, which is great. You need their support. Without their support, you're not getting through. And so that's sort of, so then of course then the big board shows up, and if we've chosen the cartoon properly or created the cartoon properly, then the the executive is going to be saying, wow, well, again, wow, I love this. I love the way you think. This is really cool. And a conversation ensues. So that's wide personalization versus deep personalization. In wide personalization, you should be using the same, for example, the same cartoon across the audience once you've tested them, and because that's a test and rollout regime of just a standard test and rollout regime of marketing. And you can then the benefit of wide personalization is you can reach greater audiences faster, and you have complete control over branding and messaging because all of it's crafted and approved, and that's the rollout. Whereas deep personalization also has really interesting uses and advantages because it's really well targeted to each individual. It's about, in Dom's case, the first one, you wouldn't be sending an apron with a Stanley C. Clarke quote to anyone but that one person. So each of these is unique, utterly unique, and tailored to something about each person. So by definition, that takes more time. There's an interesting tool out there called Seamless.ai that generates dossiers on people, uses AI to do it. That's pretty cool. But really, it requires a good amount of time to do the research on each person and then come up with a gift for each person. And then, as you might imagine, from a branding standpoint, that's pretty difficult to control. I mean, there is nothing about it that's consistent throughout. So you'd better hope that the reps are well trained and not sending things out that are, I don't know, that are upsetting people. That's not a good thing. Or that are contra to the brand, not a good thing. So you lose control over the branding a bit. But I want to say, though, that both versions of personalization are valid and should be used.
So some questions about the wide personalization. So 2 questions. Number one, you do cartoons. You're a Wall Street cartoonist, and you do this as a part of your agency, correct?
Right.
So, do you see any consistency across industries or in certain regional areas? Like the one that you showed us, is that a hit that works almost anywhere, or only in certain cases? Or
no, it does work really well. I mean, the one we're calling someone wild so and so.
Yeah,
the Cowboys. That it was pretty funny, I think.
Yeah,
so,
it was.
Yeah, it's that one's a lot of fun because when I follow, or whoever's using it, if a client's reps are using it, when follow up is occurring, we get to refer to them as wild. Put wild in front of their name, so they know exactly immediately who you are. You could put that in the subject line of an
email. Wild Steve or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so it works generally across industries. That you do you have some that are like, oh, if we could start with that one, and you're probably going to get at least an X because we've used it so much and we know.
Well, I would say yes, across industries, yeah, very easily. I mean, there's several that. I have an image bank of about 1,600 cartoons at this point. So we have a handful of cartoons that are our favorites that could apply to really any industry. And they work really well. Now, I will say that there are some personality types that are more challenging than others. So I would say that if you're going after CIOs or CISOs, those are really challenging people. I don't know, they just don't seem to want to be contacted by anyone unless it's exactly what they need at the moment. You've probably noticed that because you're so vertical.
Yeah. And here's another question. How about across countries? So in Europe or in Asia, does, for example, the cartoon idea work or not so much?
Well, I mean, cartoons are based on their humor, and humor is culturally relevant. So you got to be careful about that. Actually, I mean, I don't know. Some of these cartoons, I think that they're probably easily translated and used in other cultures, but you ought to have someone from that culture checking that, right? I mean, there's so many great stories of blooper stories. I mean, of product.
Yeah, you can certainly get it wrong.
Yeah. So you don't want to get it wrong, but I would say, if you're, I think it's really exciting. The thing is, my wife is Danish. So when we do Christmas cards and they're cartoons, we translate them into Danish and they seem to work fine. And it's really cool. I mean, I think it's really cool. I understand why she chose the word she did, but I would never just translate it myself. I'm not a native speaker of Danish. But when Charlotte does it, then it works. It's cool. And so I think if you have a native speaker helping you with the translation, then I think they could be very effective. I haven't seen any of the cartoons. I'm trying to think. I haven't seen them go out to any Spanish-speaking markets yet, and I think the effect would be incredible. I have contact with. Speaking of Copenhagen, once again, there's a startup that has been using contact marketing, and so I've been hearing from them, and we've stayed in contact, and I'm hearing that it is working. So I think it is. I mean, I think that these have to be culturally relevant or sensitive, but as long as they are, then I can see them working. Now, having said that, that's not the only form of wide personalization either. And I don't mean to say that's what contact marketing is about. That's my specialty within it.
Yeah, and that's another redirect to the book because get the meeting.
There's so many ways.
All about the examples.
Yeah.
Yeah, my when I read both books, and this is an oversimplification, but the first one is really about the theory and the idea, and or it's overweight toward that. There are some examples, but it's overweight toward the idea. And the next book, Get the Meeting, is really about making it practically reachable through examples, and actionable.
Yeah, I mean, so when I met with the publisher, and we were talking about next books that I should write, and he said, "Well, I really want to do a follow-up to How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. What do you have? What would that look like?" And so I said, well, the feedback I'm getting is I'm either getting stories from people, but they're saying, "Oh, I wish we had spoken before you wrote this book because I have another way of doing this." So there are those, and then the other feedback I was getting was that people were saying, "I wish I could see what these campaigns look like." And I wish there were pictures of when Dan Waldschmidt sends his sword campaign. I wish I knew what that looked like. It would be incredible to see that. So we started with, well, then let's do a book that's a collection of, I don't know, maybe 60 to 70 case studies with photography. And as I was doing that, I realized, well, as I explore more and more of what people are doing and using to break through, I realized, well, actually, there's a new model here that needs to come out. And so the new model still includes outreach. The present, or I should say now, the older model was the original model. Let's put it that way. Was let's use some form of outreach, and let's see what we get for a response. Now that's been incredibly effective, and it goes response rates have been going as high as 100%. I'm not the only one who's ever seen 100% response rate, and so those are incredibly effective. But then I thought, well, okay, so I have this one client, big client, and they were talking about this top stratum of accounts, and they were saying that well, actually, after we did our test, they didn't want to tell me this beforehand, but they said, before we started with your big board program, that's those big cartoon things. Before we started with that, we were getting exactly 0% response from our top stratum. We weren't getting through, and then we tested the cartoon of the big board campaign program, and suddenly we were getting through to 70%. And we were getting 70% contact and 50% meeting rate. Those are huge numbers. I mean, I started out in direct marketing where they used to say that if you get a 1% response rate, you're doing really well. And in digital marketing, click-through rates are like thousandths of a percent. They're minuscule. So then we're talking now about campaigns that are generating. Well, I mean, this one, a 70% contact rate. That's an incredible number. But it started to bother me that two things started to bother me. One was that, if we're reaching 70%, that's an incredible number. But what happened to the other 30%? And why are we leaving? If those are important accounts to us, why are we leaving those on the table in this campaign? We shouldn't be. And so this requires an extra track, a persistence track. And I think that the way to do that probably is to use digital marketing, to use specifically, I like the idea of using remarketing. So and companies like Terminus and Rollworks and others do this, or you can do it just directly through your Google Ads account. You can start targeting people that you haven't even set a tracking pixel on. And running ads to them before you even reach out. That's a great way to do it. So if we were using that though as our persistence track, then we start running ads to them. Let's say 2 weeks before contact. The ads continue during contact or during the outreach portion of the campaign. So then the outreach campaign goes out and we're now following up, and so these ads continue to show up wherever they go on the web. And then after contact. Still, I mean, all the way through the sales cycle, we could be reinforcing the sales. I mean, just the sale, the impetus for the sale through this persistence track. So that new model includes a persistence track that just runs all the way through that cycle, from pre-contact to contact to sales cycle, and even into retention.
So just to slow that down, a persistence campaign is. Really has the two components to it. Either you set a pixel, which means that somebody visits a website and at the bottom it says, hey, we use cookies, and then you click yes, and then that person has a cookie attached, which means that we can follow their movements through basically the Google display ad network.
Yeah, in other words, by following, you're displaying ads.
Displaying ads, exactly. So if I go to your website and then I get I'm cookied by accepting to receive cookies, then the next time I go to Facebook, or if I do searching on Google, in the right-hand navigation bar, I'm going to start seeing your ad because I'm being presented with ads based on the cookie that's set on your website.
Yep, they follow you around.
And that's, let's say, half of it, or one way to do it. And the other way is through some technology that you talk about. Was that what Terminus does? You can geographically basically display ads to people within a certain geography. Is that right?
Well, you can use geofencing. That's true.
Geofencing, so there's multiple ways through to create opportunities for remarketing, retargeting, which means that you can present ads to people throughout their web activity.
Yes, exactly. So wherever they go, let's say if they go, for example, if you are a news junkie and you want to see, you're going to the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times or Fox, depends on what kind of news you want to, or what take you want to get on the news. But wherever you're going, this is the important thing, and the impressive thing is that these ads follow you around. And they look like a national ad campaign. If I was trying to reach you, Jamal, I would start running my ads 2 weeks before I reach out to you. And my ads would have my 2 books, the 2 covers, and the headline, "One meeting can change everything," and then a little graphic to click on to buy it on Amazon. Well, here's the interesting thing. If I'm if I'm running that ad, I don't really want you to click on it. Actually, I don't care whether you click on it. That's not the purpose of the ad. Although it looks like I want you to. What it looks like is Amazon is advertising my books. So that's a pretty impressive thing. I just want to create awareness based on that, on Amazon presenting my books to you, I guess is the way to put it. So that when I reach out to you, all of a sudden it's, oh my God, the author of those 2 books that I'm seeing all over the place,
it's calling me,
reaching out to me. Wow. That's pretty cool. And so it has a nice effect. I've already been humanized to you, I think is probably the point.
Yeah.
And then if I send you, what I do typically. So if I send you one of my big boards, you can, and if it references the 2 books, and it would, he's going to be saying, "Wow, that's incredible! Wow, I've never seen anything like this. This is incredible." So of course they'd be connecting with me, and as long as I have something relevant. If I'm offering window washing services, once again, the CEO doesn't need to talk to me. So that's how that would work. The thing is, what those companies, Terminus and Rollworks, what they do is they take advantage of a program that Google has, or I don't know, we'll call it a program called Customer Match. And as long as you've spent enough money with Google, they'll make that Customer Match feature available to you. So you have to have at least a $50,000 lifetime spend within the Google ad network. And a lot of people don't, or a lot of companies don't have that. So these companies say, fine, we can take you past that threshold because we do have the lifetime spend. So we'll run the ads for us. So what happens is you submit a spreadsheet of first and last names and email addresses, and Google will match third-party pixels that have already been set and allow you to display ads to those people. And that's what's pretty cool. So yeah, you're right. So either you're either going to be setting the pixels directly by drawing people to a some sort of a landing page or just your web page. You're going to set pixels on the people who are visiting you, but you're also going to be able to use third-party pixels to reach out to these people that you want to.
That's amazing.
And so the other part of the model, I'll just say real quickly, involves something that I call pocket campaigns that replace business cards, and also the end result is they pull you to a landing page which sets the pixel and puts you into that digital persistence campaign as well.
The last time we spoke, you had an example on your desk. Do you have one?
Oh, of a pocket campaign? Yeah. So, well, I mean, I should explain that pocket campaigns came about because I think business cards are pretty much, they're nice, but they're inert. And I think, there's this underlying strategy that I think has worn out a long time ago. There's this sort of this never-ending arms race to make your card look as surprising and impressive as possible. So you have things like, cards like this that are etched in metal or laser etched and, done in ways, I don't know if you can even see that. That's pretty intricate.
Yeah.
And then, or etched on wood. And there's all kinds of really interesting things that people have been, are being offered. I don't want to call them interesting in this context. They are, there's fancy papers and there's embossing and foil stamping and et cetera. all attempts to make your card look as look as impressive as possible. And that's what I don't think is working. People end up taking those and just tossing them or putting them in a box somewhere. They don't serve a long-term purpose. But if we're talking about a pocket campaign, well, these are well, you still hand them out like cards, but they're engagement devices. They start out with an engagement device rather than just something that, doesn't really compel you to do much of anything other than put it in a box. We're talking about something like this. So here's one of my clients' pocket campaigns. It's a little pouch that says tools to tools to give more without spending more. How does that work? And then on the back, there's a URL to go to for tool directions, because what's inside the pouch is this multi-tool, and it's a credit card size. It's about the thickness of a credit card. But it's a multi-tool. There are cutouts for different size wrenches. Wrenches, I should say, for different bolt heads. There's a bottle opener here. There's a box cutter and a letter opener, and there's screwdrivers on it. There's all kinds of stuff. But you'll notice that none of that is labeled, and it's done on purpose. Because what we want you to do is flip the thing over and go to the tool directions URL. And so you'll go to that page where there's a video to show you how to use the tool, but that's where we're setting a tracking pixel. So that is our way of, this still launches from your pocket like a business. It's still handed out like a business card, because it is a business card. It still has the logo and contact details for a name of the person holding the card. So it still has all those things, but it's not printed on fancy paper now to make you go, ooh. Instead it's an involvement device that has you saying, well, oh, that's cool. I'm going to keep that in my wallet. It's
beyond the coolness of the device is the persistence element, which will cover days, weeks, months of ongoing, repeated interaction with the customer or the audience, and the idea that you're trying to put in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, so this is, when we hand out business cards, I guess sometimes it's because we've set up a meeting. Other times it's because we just run into people randomly, or you have the meeting but you don't have a pixel set. We want to get pixels set on these people, and so the pocket campaign is a way to get those pixels set and pull them into that persistence track of the overall campaign. There's another one. Let's see, where did I put? Let me see if I could find it real quickly. There's one card that here we go. I see it. There we go. Here's another card. This one is etched in metal. It's utterly famous on the internet. It's Kevin Mitnick's card, and Kevin started his adult life as a hacker, and he went to prison for it. Went to prison for 5 years for it, and when he got out. Pardon me, when he got out, he was thinking, well, what do I do? All I know how to do is hack. And so I don't know. I'm not sure what caused this thought, but in this incredible miracle of reinvention, he said, wait a minute, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to approach all the big companies in the world, and I'm going to tell them, look, I'm the kind of guy that you want to defend your IT systems against. And, I'm so good at this that I went to prison. They made a movie about me. I'm the real deal. And so if you want to defend against people like me, you need people like me on your side, constantly testing your IT. The CISOs probably that you sell to probably know Kevin Mitnick quite well, because he's always making a run at the gates to see where the vulnerabilities are. That's incredibly valuable. Think about how valuable that is today. So again, his card, and I'm going to hold it up a little closer. That card is actually a set of lock-picking tools, and you can take each one of these things out, and you can use them to pick a lock. And that's actually that's kind of the point of this too, is that Kevin will tell you, if you go to his site, there's a video of someone actually using the tools to pick a lock. Well, isn't that incredible? So that's actually I have terms in the Pocket Campaign structure here. So there's the involvement device. This part, the part that you hand out, it includes a jump offer. When we're talking about this guy, this guy, well, the jump offer is go to this URL to see a video to understand all the ways that just to know how to use the tool. And so that's the jump offer. That leads to the jump page, which is the page hosting the video and setting the pixels. So in Kevin's case, again, back to Kevin's, the lockpick set it's really a visual metaphor for for the value that he offers. He's going to help you protect against the use of these tools virtually in your IT system. It's incredibly, your IT system is your vault. So he's going to help you protect against that. But in this case, going to a site to see the video of someone actually picking a lock, it's not a get one, get another one free, or buy two, get another one free, or something like that. It's not a promotional offer. Mm-hmm. It's a jump offer. Here again, it's a jump offer.
A jump offer?
Jump offer. Yeah.
Jump offer. What does that mean?
Well, it's just an offer that leads to the jump page.
Oh, gotcha.
And so the jump page again has to offer something of value or interest. And so in both cases, we're not talking about promotional offers like, hey, we've got a sweepstakes going, go there and enter your name. And I would never do that. And what you want is 100% compliance with that offer. You want everybody who gets the tool to say, oh, you know what, I want to go find out how to use this now, just so I know what everything is. It's a pretty innocuous, a pretty nice offer, actually. And same with Kevin's. It's this sort of intriguing offer. I want to see someone pick a lock with your card. That's pretty cool.
So there's a visceral feeling to it. The idea of picking locks, gaining entry, it hits whatever part of the brain is the one that you want to trigger when you're talking about intrusion detection and protection at the gate, the firewall, et cetera. So totally get it. Stu, this is amazing stuff. You basically just gave a 1-hour masterclass on the whole concept of contact management or contact marketing. And I really, I appreciate it. I'm going to put it in a couple of places with my people, with the sales tribe, and so that they can enjoy it as well. Now, you've mentioned that you're going to do some kind of training offering that teaches people really how to do this kind of beyond the book, right? The book is basically the what, a little bit of the how, but maybe you're going to do something that is more about the how to action this.
Yeah, well, eventually we'll have a training program available. I can't talk much about it yet, but we'll have a training product out. Otherwise, we also, the one thing that I get really excited about is I run strategy sessions. You can see behind me, although this is a green screen, to be honest, but I'm on an island actually, just outside of Seattle, about 20 miles north of Seattle, called Whidbey Island. And I'm in this little town called Langley. It's this gorgeous, very charming little town on seaside town, but it's actually cliffside as well. And it's the perfect place to sit down and do a lot of really terrific creative work. So I have clients come to the island for weekend strategy sessions, and they're just a blast. We start with this 10-course meal in this beautiful 5-star restaurant right there on the cliff, overlooking the water, and we have a 10-course meal, and we get excited about what we're going to do over the 2 days, and then we work out a strategy, an overall contact marketing strategy, which really is a rapid growth strategy. If you think about it, we're talking about connecting with the people who can change your scale. So it's about changing scale.
So who's the audience, or who typically comes to these events?
Well, this would be the CSO or CMO or somebody in charge, at least somebody in charge of strategy for growing the company or growing sales. And it could be the owner of the company. Depends on the size of the company. So it could be that. It's usually at that level. I'm saying that because it's not, you wouldn't expect CSRs to come or SDRs because it's $25,000 per seat to do that. That's not the way that we train SDRs.
No.
But it is the way that we set strategy and come up with a set of test campaigns. so that they can go forward and start using contact marketing to open new markets and new accounts.
Well, maybe after we're done here, you can give me whatever contact information you want to leave to set a cookie and have it start a persistent. No, I'm just kidding. but for people that would want to know more about the strategy sessions that you hold, maybe we can find a way to, for people that watch this video,
Sure.
can reach out to you for that.
Or okay, I could at least give my author site. That
Absolutely.
might be helpful.
Cool. Yeah.
My author site is stuheinecke.com. Pretty easy if you know how to spell my name. So StuHeinecke. So stuheinecke.com. And if you go there, there's a sneak preview of Get the Meeting, which is pretty cool. Just sign up for that. That's a pretty nice thing to do. And I'm also utterly open to connecting with people on LinkedIn, especially. So if you mention that you heard us talking and wanted to get in touch, that's great. I'd love to connect that way as well.
Well, that's great, Stu. Thank you so much for this time. This was you almost did the audio version of the book. With at least how much value is there, but of course in the book there's so much more, and I've enjoyed both of the books so much. So thanks so much, and let's stay in touch. And I'm gonna turn off the recording. We can sign off, but thanks again. And for the rest of you, I hope you're watching, and I hope you get a lot of value out of it. I know I sure did. And we will see you in the next one.
Thanks, Jamal.